Welcome back to the Ascension podcast with your hosts, Carter and Alyssa Montgomery.
I feel like that needs like a drum roll.
You know, we actually have this fancy podcast machine, which I can add all those special effects to. So maybe as we get dialed in with this podcast flow, we'll add some special effects to you guys. Maybe an intro song. We'll get real spicy with it.
Yeah, we can make our own little rap intro.
We're going to rap?
Yeah, like we can make our own little rap.
You guys have no idea. Typically, I make the beats and she raps. This has happened many times before. This is like a real,
like a true life.
Yeah, maybe we'll record some shit, drop a mixtape. I don't know. We'll see where life takes us.
We'll be like Andy Frisella in the beginning. It's a real rapper, though.
Yeah, that's a real rapper. I mean, we're real rappers,
should we challenge
too,
Andy to a rap off?
Yeah, I think
he'd go hard. I think Andy Frisella would smash.
I don't think he would actually do it because...
Yeah, we're like no one to him right
no,
now.
Just meaning your bars are way crazier than his would ever be, so you'd feel concerned, threatened.
You're right.
You know, because you're a superior rapper.
This is true.
Enough of the bullshit, though.
My love, how was your weekend?
My weekend was good. For those of you that follow me on Instagram, had a little mishap with my motorcycle. Again, nothing bad. Motorcycle broke. Not like got in an accident or anything, but the bike has given me some little bit of trouble here. But nonetheless, I got it fixed. Was able to take it out this weekend. We went up to where did we go?
We went to Del Rey. But
Del Rey.
Tell them what you got fixed and what happened and the story behind that, because it's honestly really comical.
All right. So you guys want to hear a fucking funny story?
Got the bike first off.
So I bought the bike from Instagram, basically. There's the guy, he resells Harleys, awesome guy, great deal, all that good stuff, right? Anyway, I got the bike. Bike was great. Rode to Daytona, rode it a bunch, basically had it for a year. I fucked up the bike and blew something in the motor, blah, 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 got that shit fixed. I had the bike back, but the entire time we had it, the bike's lifted, right? So it's raised up. So it makes sense that it leans a little bit more. But ever since we got the bike, I was like, fuck, man, this thing leans a lot. And you can buy these like little blocks that go in the kickstand to kick it up a little bit higher. I was like, fuck, I really need to put one of those on there. This is just leaning like way too much. Like it was literally like leaning to the side like crazy. We take it out like a week ago. We come back home. We're in the garage putting it away. And I put the kickstand down and the bike just keeps going down. I'm like, what the fuck? I kind of like let it go and like tip over a little bit. I'm like, fuck, the kickstand's
I get off the
it.
bike and you're like, I'm trying to get off the bike and Carter can't hold the bike up or put it on the kickstand. And he's like looking at me like, what the fuck? And I'm like, it's not me, dude.
No, I knew it wasn't her. I knew exactly what it was. I was just like looking at it just like, why the fuck is this happening? So anyway, long story short, I'm like, all right, cool, fucking kickstand's broke. It won't hold the bike up. So we live in high rise, so we live in a parking structure. And I pinned the bike between a water pipe and our golf cart to like just prop it up until I was able to take it in. Well, 2 days after doing that, the one time they have to fucking use the upper floor of the garage, I get a call from front desk like, hey, we need you to move your golf cart because they need to take stuff out of this door and it's blocking it.
Which means we need to move the bike.
Which means the bike doesn't have a kickstand anymore because the golf cart and the water pipe were the kickstand. I was like, all right, fuck it. I got to go take it in. Took it into Harley. Shout out to my dudes at that specific Harley Davidson. I'm not going to give them a shout out because they fucking hooked me up. Instead of charging me a bunch of hours worth of labor, the guy's like, yo, if you give me some cash, I'll just fix it real quick.
$20 later.
The kickstand was being held on by one fucking screw for over a year. All the places we've taken it, all the times I've propped it up next to other bikes and all this shit, this one fucking screw was holding this kickstand up. And finally, the screw gave way. And that's what happened, and that's why the kickstand was broke. But basically, I'm super blessed that this bike never tipped over and knocked over like 20 bikes in a row and just really fucked everyone's day up and mine. Probably would have got my ass beat, but that's okay. We're here. It's fixed. I'm happy. We went up to Del Rey, ripped the bike up, had some fun. So I had a good time. What about you?
Yeah, since you've been following along the last pretty much like 5 weeks, we've been in like that work grind mode and like maybe a little bit of chill. But I was like, I want to like play and have fun this weekend and feel like I'm on vacation. So we did our little like chores and tasks and little life stuff. And then we like tanned and laid out on our roof, which is super sick because it's like a 360-degree view of like all of Fort Lauderdale and Miami. You see the port, the city, the ocean. It's gorgeous. And then we took the bike up for a little dinner date. So it's like a nice ride. We have to take advantage of being able to ride right now in Florida because it's dry season, because we've ran into the situation where we try to take the bike out in the summer and it looks nice and then it starts pouring rain and we've been drenched. And literally went 10 minutes down the road and then had to go back. So I'm like, let's go take the bike out. We have to. It's the season. And then the next day we had like a nice beach day and it was super chill and fun. It was a rest day. So yeah, it felt like a real Floridian.
Real Floridians for
Enjoying
sure.
beach life.
I was happy to ride again. For those of you that want to know, hey, Carter, how do you like Florida compared to California?
On a bike
I love Florida. No, in general.
in general.
Carter loves Florida. There's about 3 things he misses: In-N-Out, Mexican food,
Tacos.
like real Mexican food, and the mountains. Those are the 3 things I miss. California was great for riding. Go out the mountains, go out to the desert, just kind of get away from people and ride. Don't really have that here in Florida. You can ride by the beach, which is beautiful, but it's just a different way of doing things. Nonetheless, I'm enjoying it. Happy to get back out. Glad I'm getting back to some of the things that I enjoy doing because I have unfortunately not prioritized that shit. But here we are. So let's dive into today's podcast topic. Now, before we kick this off, I want to preface this that we are by no means talking shit on any specific people, on the industry as a whole. We're just trying to share with you the reality of what happens, what we've experienced and the journeys we had to go through and what we've witnessed because we've been around it for so long. So we've witnessed a lot of people go through their shit, right? And before we dive into it a little bit deeper, I also want to explain that there's a difference between the fitness industry and there's a difference between the competitive bodybuilding industry, okay? Yes, it's under one umbrella, but they are 2 different facets. Think about like CrossFit and bodybuilding, kind of 2 different things. Sort of the same concept, right? Fitness is this big umbrella. Bodybuilding, competitive bodybuilding is a little like a subset of the fitness industry. So I just want to kind of preface that. So as we talk through things, you guys can understand what we're talking about and it'll all make a little bit more sense. So kick it off.
All right. Okay. I think when I started in this world of bodybuilding and like really understanding how to get proper help to get to the stage or really like modify my physique to the next level, I had to go through a series of coaches. And let me tell you, I learned more about what not to do from these coaches than what to do, which actually put me on the path and trajectory of coaching myself through my pro card and then Carter helping me through my pro debut because I was so over it. Carter, on the other hand, in his first show, his first beginning of his journey of his bodybuilding journey to stage, was blessed with like a really like educated coach who led him on a path of really empowering him with creating his own just like information, like just empowering you through you discovering your own knowledge around a lot of those things with bodybuilding. So it was like ultimately the result was the same, but how he went about it was so different.
Well, it's kind of funny because she had the experience early on with shitty coaches, but she didn't get the shittiness of the business side and all of the fucking snakes within the industry. She just had all the shitty coaches.
What?
Later on,
Still had snakes.
later on, you came to figure that piece out. For me, it was the opposite. I've had nothing but great coaches. I can speak highly of every single one. I've learned a bunch. But very early on, I started seeing all the snakes in the shitty side of the industry. So it was kind of interesting how, like, for me, it was flipped around. For her, it was flipped around. But again, we both ended up coming to the same point, experiencing a lot of the same things. And again, we'll kind of just dive into it from there. So I don't know. Let's start on the coach thing. Why don't you kick that off and just explain, some of the shit you had to deal with on the coaching aspect of things?
Yeah. So I think as far as like my first coach goes, this girl, Katie, and I, you guys probably might know her, Katie Corio. We went to the same gym together and she started blowing up on social media and building it. I started blowing up on social media and building it. And she started working with this online coach. And he was very like a macro based coach. And I think that's what was like the hype at that time in like 2015 to 2014 was that, oh, let's get away from bro science with bodybuilding. And although I was still put on like prep macros, which is basically like a 1,200 calorie diet, doing like an hour and a half to 2 hours of cardio a day sometimes, which isn't always what is needed to get to the stage, but that's what this guy's approach was. He never really actually gave me a proper bodybuilding structured plan, and I think that's what was absolutely wrong with that, because I didn't understand that my quote unquote carb macros at first should have been actual carbs, not like fucking vegetables. So I was eating like 80 grams of carbs worth of vegetables a day.
It's a lot of veggies. It's a lot of veggies.
So I just looked like a freaking noodle because
Probably didn't shit for like fucking 3 weeks either.
I didn't have that problem. But it's just like people, and like I was a natural athlete at this time, like people can literally mess you up with food. And like then this started like a really disordered pattern around eating because I didn't understand the value of like actual real carbohydrates. I was trying to fill my macros with all these things that were low carb or weren't actually carbs, which in turn affected the way my like physique was. And then he didn't educate me on like a proper reverse diet, even though I was trying to seek knowledge from this. But everyone around me was telling me, oh, he's one of the best coaches. And it was so hard to find the proper information to actually find like a good coach, because then I was also in San Diego where there was like Team Edge where like literally everyone was anorexic. So it's just like all these different teams and coaches from like World's Gym that it's just like I just knew everyone sucked, so I didn't know how to get the proper help at that time. I don't know. I guess that was like my segue and entry into like having a coach or like trying to find it. And then after that, I was just like on this journey to like try to find like a good coach. And like, oh, who do these top competitors work with? And then I just realized everyone was just filled with bullshit. And then I got into having a coach who didn't understand anything about like enhancements or anabolics, even though he said he did. And yeah, then that led me to me getting set up with like a wellness clinic that put me on testosterone that wasn't correctly monitored, but I had no idea because I was working with a doctor. I don't know. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah.
For me?
So first piece of this, to all of our clients listening, you guys can see why we are so education focused. The goal is not to just fucking give you a plan. It's for you to actually understand what you're doing and why you are doing it. That is the first key to success. If you don't understand that piece or you don't have a coach that's taking the time to do that, then unfortunately, without that coach, you will fail. And so again, it's about setting clients up. Even if it's a prep client and they need the coach, you need to make sure people are set up for success. But yeah, unfortunately, what Alyssa went through is a very common thing. Unfortunately, a lot of people who, I don't want to say they're not qualified, they're just not qualified in all areas, are giving out guidance. Or maybe they're great athletes and great competitors, but that does not make you a great coach. Tom Brady is one of the best football players, but Tom Brady is not a coach. And so the same thing applies with bodybuilding. Just because someone has won some titles or they have accomplished some big shit doesn't mean that they're actually the best coaches. And unfortunately, that's where Alyssa, fell into that trap that many people do, is because you're mesmerized by the physique. People talk a big game. A lot of people are also trusting these people as well. So you think it's okay. That actually segues into some of the business shit we'll talk later on that I got myself mixed up into. Is you don't want to call it sheep, but unfortunately in the industry, you see so many people doing the same thing, trusting the same people. You think you should go that route as well, but come to find out that ultimately it's not all sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah, and what we've noticed too is like what seems like, and this was later down the years, Carter and I just observing together and sharing information, is a lot of coaches come off more educated than what they actually are. And then you receive these coaches' plans through the clients that come to us from them, because eventually people realize, hey, this shit isn't working for me. I'm not getting the results that I want. And then we see these plans and programs and protocols from whether it's just food and cardio and training, or they have introduced PEDs into the mix. We see these plans and they're absolutely like bogus and unsafe.
Or written in an Apple Note.
Or
and
texted to you and WhatsApp. I'm like, what the frick is this ghetto shit? So
go ahead.
Yeah, so I think for me, I just kept running. I think I've probably went through like maybe like 10 to 12 coaches, and I dropped people pretty quickly once I realized like how uneducated they were. And because I knew myself enough, and maybe I was just looking for accountability. I think over the years, I had learned enough to get myself to where I needed to go. Maybe I was just thinking like, oh, I need that extra guidance. Going back to the industry and politics, though, I had to personally get over thinking that you had to have a big name coach to go big, to go pro, and to get placed on stage. And I think that's also what drove me to wanting to work with certain coaches. So the last coach I hired was like one of the top pro coaches. He didn't even fucking check in with me. Like he barely even gave me a planner program, also over text, which I was so surprised about. So I pretty much dropped him before the Arnold Sports Festival. This was my wellness debut. And of course, he like still tried to like come in and take credit, but I wasn't sure. I was still then that half in, half out game with not knowing if do I need like a big name coach to go pro or get placed. Well, basically took over my prep after that, went pro at Junior USA's. I think it was, so that was March. I went pro in August. That was during COVID, so the shows kept getting pushed back. And Sandy, one of the head female judges backstage, talked to me about the Arnold, but didn't even remember me or know who I am. So it didn't even matter. He didn't even do his job anyways, like he said he was. It doesn't even, it was so irrelevant.
Yeah, and like one of the big things for those of you that don't know anything really about the competitive world is a lot of it really is accountability, because after you work with so many coaches or you go through this journey long enough, you understand what works for your body. You start understanding the concepts. Like you actually know how to apply shit for yourself. And Alyssa was at that point. But when you get to those last couple weeks before a show and you know, food's super low, cardio's high, you're going through these far extremes, you don't have the mental to actually judge yourself. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times you'll start making these extreme changes that are actually going to negatively impact your look because you're in the head like, I need to work harder, I need to do more to win, which is a good competitor mindset. That's not a good coach mindset. No. And that's why having someone on the outside, an objective view, is very crucial to be that second pair of eyes and say, hey, no, we don't need to push things anymore. Or no, hey, we need to push things a little bit harder, whatever it is, because then again, it takes that stress away from you and you're able to actually roll into the show a little bit more clear-minded because you've almost released the reins and gave them to someone else. And you just say, hey, tell me the work I need to do. I'm going to put in the fucking work. And that's what a lot of competitors do. That's even what I needed at that point. Like I knew what to do. I coached myself through a big portion of my competitive career, but I needed someone, one, to really help me with the posing and be that second pair of eyes to make sure I could present myself. And then two, just also have someone to where like when I wasn't thinking clearly that they could kind of take the reins and I could trust them to actually guide me through those last couple of weeks to bring my absolute best to the show. But again, finding those people, as you can see, are very, very hard to find.
I think what also ended up happening for me once wellness was announced in 2020, if you don't know what the wellness division is, basically it's the newest women's division. I mean, now they came out with some weird division, but it was the newest women's division that was overseas in Europe that awarded women with more muscular and developed lower bodies that was asymmetrical to the upper body. So it's almost like it is a disproportionate look, but it's for like curvier, thicker, lowered bodied women, which was definitely up my alley. I tried to shrink myself for a bikini for years. It just was never going to work for me. I always had a more developed lower body. That's just my genetics. So once it came out, they started like all these women that have been like juiced out in Brazil for like 10 years of their life, like literally taking PEDs since they were 16, not even an exaggeration, kept coming up on Instagram because people were looking up like, oh, wellness. It's like this big buzzword stuff. So in the beginning, people didn't really like believe in me, even though I said I'm going to go pro and I'm going to be one of the first, and this is one of my goals. So people weren't taking me seriously at that time when I needed the proper help and guidance. But then, of course, once I started getting all the hype and I got third at the Arnold Sports Festival, the first wellness show ever in the U.S., and then I got the first pro card, that next show a couple months later, everyone wanted something to do with me. All of a sudden, everybody believed in me and like they were my best friend. And you probably experienced something like that really similarly too. People who didn't believe in you now are all of a sudden like your biggest fan. Like, oh, Alyssa, I watched and let's work out together. Come get sponsored by this company. Or I used to work out with her, so I helped her. Like, what?
Yeah, with the fitness industry, guys, you know, it's kind of like MMA. It's a very short-lived career. You're only going to be at the top for so long. I don't care how great you are. You're only going to be there for so long. It's very, very short-lived. So you'll see a lot of companies, a lot of coaches, a lot of people, they ride the coattail, right? Whoever's hot and greatest at that time, they want to try to attach their name or their business to them in order to get that recognition and push their brand or their business, whatever it is, even further. And that's exactly what happened to Alyssa. It happened all the way until the day she fucking retired. Because again, she was at the top. When you're at the top, people want to ride that coattail. They want to attach their name to you in whatever way they can. So they could say, hey, I had coffee with her and we talked about fitness. So therefore I helped coach her to her pro card. So that makes me qualified. Like, you see people come up with some fucking outrageous shit because again, they're just trying to attach their name to you. So yeah, so going into me a little bit, less about my coaches. I was very fortunate. My first coach was a very well-known, prestigious bodybuilder in San Diego. My mom worked with a lady who did fitness competitions, said my son was interested. She basically gave my mom his number. My mom was trying to give me a good avenue to deal with all my bullshit. Drove me from Temecula to San Diego, dropped me off at World's Gym, and I would do that one time a week, and I would sit there for like 4.5 hours because my mom was busy, had to work, and I would get my 1 hour training session. I would just chill at World's Gym and see the bodybuilders, get inspired. But at the same time, I also started witnessing all the bullshit of the industry, and it started off with just a lot of infidelity that I was watching happen within the gym. I would see guys come in with their wives would leave, I would see them cheat. Same thing with the females. I would see people who were in relationships. The next thing you know, a week later, they're not in a relationship, and then they're with that person's best friend. So at a very young age, I started witnessing like, oh, wow, this is like kind of grimy. This is a lot of weird shit going on, right? And so that was like my first introduction to like, oh, wow, maybe these people are normal in a sense and have a lot of fucking bad shit, and it's just kind of cultivated in this environment. Add hormones and ego and all of this other shit to the mix, and it really kind of fuels that environment. So I grew up kind of witnessing all that shit. Now I was very fortunate. A lot of people did believe in me for a really long time. That's kind of why I did what I did. People pushed me in that direction. However, just like Alyssa, there were companies and individuals that wanted to attach their name to me after I did achieve something big. And that's what unfortunately led me down a path that was one of the reasons I decided to step away from competitive bodybuilding completely. I have never talked about this. I can only talk about so much. But long story short, at 21 years old, I was convinced by an individual that he would be a great asset to me. I just turned pro. I had many companies reaching out to me, wanting to work with me, photo shoots, just so much momentum happened after I won USAs. This individual came in at the right time, talked a big game, presented money, presented all these great things that would have seemed like they very much benefited me. Long story short, I signed paperwork I should have not signed without having it properly reviewed, because if I did, they would have said, hey, buddy, you're a fucking idiot if you sign this. Nonetheless, I did. And it basically turned into a multiple year lawsuit of me navigating the situation, which was extremely difficult on all areas, because I finally saw, one, that if you don't do things the right way, that you will get screwed. So you got to look out for yourself, but also that this industry unfortunately will take advantage of you to make money. And as I was going through this process, this individual was a very well-known sponsor for a lot of the organizations. I would talk to the owners and the head judges, and their response to me was, hey, well, he
Money
paid.
talks.
Yep, money talks. He paid. We can't really do anything about it, even though you and all these other people are being put through a shitty situation. And at the time, we were the top 12 pros at the time, all wrapped into this mess and trying to navigate it together. Long story short, that really woke me up to understanding that it is business, and business can be very snaky. And if you don't make the right moves and put the right people around you and protect yourself, you unfortunately will be taken advantage of. However, I'm extremely grateful I did go through that opportunity, because Alyssa was very much aware of this. She saw these things, but even before she went pro, everyone was trying to attach their fucking name to her. Everyone's saying, hey, she took my pre-workout stack and that's why she looks that way. Not to—
Oh my God, guys. Literally, this guy's begged me to be on his supplement company for such a long time. And we've like spent time together, it's like in groups of friends and things like that, whatever. Anyways, never even like told me good luck on your, on your show or on your pro card or anything, even though we've always been in contact and had more of a personal relationship. texts me after I got my pro card that night and says, "Oh, I heard you got your pro card." And so I ignored it because I was literally ready to just drop the supplement company because I was promised that I would have had some assistance or help, which is totally fine that it didn't. Like, hey, as your sponsor, I'll help do this, or people will pay for your tan, or like for your hotel, or like your flights, or like something like that. That's a part of a sponsor, for someone to help these pros basically take care of like their accommodations for the shows, because that's the only way. You don't get paid in bodybuilding. The only way you get money to have things taken care of for you is if companies sponsor you. So that's the whole goal of the sponsors. Sure, I'm sure it's similar to MMA or like any other sport. It's just way less money. Anyways, so I stopped tagging this company or doing anything. I think the only thing I really got from them was like a free pre-workout and like maybe a protein, which is actually the worst deal I've ever had with a supplement company. I just only signed with them because I was promised so much, which was my bad too, right? It should have been in writing. Should have been in writing. Who cares if they were my friend? Because they weren't my friend. Anyways, literally comments after I go pro. So I ignored the text message on my pro announcement post. And you won your pro card because you use blank blank supplement stack. Literally commented, you use insert company's name. Supplement stack is the reason you won your pro card. I deleted it. He commented it again. What is that shit? Like, that's just the kind of, and that's just like a crumb of all the crappiness in this big cookie of chaos that these people are, because everyone feels so damn entitled to you when you earn something in competing. And then after that, I made an Instagram story about how I coached myself to my pro card, didn't have a coach, did everything myself, from my posing to the entire prep and protocol, the peak week. And this old coach of mine responds to my story, chewing me out, saying, "You only learned what you did for me, and I got you there." Even though that person only took me through one show and they absolutely screwed up my peak week and made me spill, which basically means they overfed you. So your look is more soft than dry and hard. And I was like, what? I learned everything not to do from you. So I just got attacked on all fronts. I literally had someone who I was writing a handwritten card to thank them tell me that I didn't thank them enough on social media, and I made it all about myself because he wanted a bigger shout out because he was my massage therapist, even though I was writing him a handwritten card.
So, like, as you guys can see, there's a lot of ego involved in
It's
this
just
shit.
so funny saying out loud. So I felt like I was like a dartboard, and like all these people were throwing darts at me.
Yeah, and so like as I was saying, is there's obviously a lot of ego involved in all of this, but at the same time, you also have to look at it like this: we were at the top, and anytime you're at the top, no matter who you are, those darts or those arrows are going to get thrown at you. Unfortunately, it's typically from people that you would least expect it.
Yeah,
from.
your closest friends. I had to cut out everyone, literally everyone. As soon as I went pro, I think I unfollowed and deleted so many people off my contacts list. Actually blocked because I was getting literally harassed. And
Yeah.
so as I went through the ranks and went for my pro debut and everything, I told Carter, I was like, dude, I understand what you went through, and like that is such a light, and I'm so grateful for that because it definitely gave me a different perspective. Because once I went pro is basically when we started dating. And I told him, I was like, if I go to the Olympia and win the Olympia, I feel like I'm going to get, because our goal is to build the brand and business to like make money off the name and help people, not just win the Olympia. You have to do something with the name. Like, amen and praise Chris Bumstead for retiring after 6 years and building an amazing brand and business. Now he can just go be a fit dad with his wife, Courtney, and like live their damn life forever. He never has to step on a stage again because he built a brand. So like, that's the goal if you're going to the Olympia and like planning to win and do big things. But I told him, I was like, I feel like I'm going to get sued up the yin yang because people are going to come up to me saying that I owe them money for doing that because they had a say in it. And that's that bodybuilding industry. Everybody wants a piece of your pie.
Yeah, and that's why it was like a little interesting for us to navigate in the beginning too, because like she was still getting, because remind you, like I retired 4 years prior to her turning pro and doing all of that. So I was completely separated from all of it, and I was not trying to bring in all my shit to like warp her view of things. But at the same time, I was like trying to play protector mode. And I was like, yo, fuck a sponsorship. We'll just pay for your own shit. And like, even though all these offers are getting thrown at her, it's just like, it's never worth it. At that point, you're a fucking employee of this person. It never turns out the way it should.
No one's going to pay you enough.
No one's going to pay you enough. And nobody actually fulfills on all of their promises. And that's just what we've seen continuously with countless other competitors over the past 15 years.
Yeah, so I doubled down on my posing business and my coaching business, and I was like, I'm only going to promote myself and just help people, and whatever happens, happens. But it really, like for Carter, right? He just spent years, like he finally went pro at like 22. So he's watched basically and worked towards his future for like 7 or 8 years just to get on stage, win his pro card. And he started winning pro shows. So for him to have to like walk away after he worked so hard, he just left his corporate job to go all in and pursue a fitness career and build a brand and build a name for himself. And he had to step away from all of that immediately. And it ended up doing like a 360 because here we are building our personal brand and business and fitness in a totally different light and perspective. And we did start off by coaching competitors at first, which actually wasn't really healthy for us because it wasn't who we wanted to serve. We didn't really believe in helping people get to the bodybuilding stage anymore because it didn't align with our value system and what we thought was best for people, because most people who compete don't even belong in a prep or on stage. They're just lifestyle clients trying to force themselves into this bubble because they can't fully comprehend what it means to be a competitor. Carter and I at a really young age understood and saw and did our research what it meant to be a competitor and the sacrifices that it takes to do that. It's just most people aren't there yet. They haven't realized that. So,
or understanding that you can have that elite level physique without having to do a show.
That part.
Like it's very, very doable. And that's literally how we live our life right now, is that if we wanted to, we could probably do a pretty quick prep, step on stage and at least hold our own. But yeah, a lot of people just don't realize like that can all happen without you going to those far extremes and you not having to actually compete. Because again, competing is exactly what it is. It's competing. You are doing things to the absolute extreme. Everything else in your entire life gets shut out for this one goal. And if you do not shut everything out, you will not be number one. And this is why, again, the top competitors are not coaches. The top competitors do not have businesses. Why? Because they are athletes. Their job is to be an athlete. So that's really where all of that comes into play and really kind of breaks it down. And so I think the biggest thing for us and why we're so passionate about what we do now is because we went through all the bullshit, all the lies and scams of the fitness industry, the snaky parts of the fitness industry, the quote unquote dark side of the industry. And we saw like, this is not how fitness is supposed to be, because it fucking disgusted us. And it made both of us
hate
fitness and hate the industry and hate everything about it.
But we realized that was like just a little speck.
But it was a spec, but we also realized that it takes people like us, and there are more people like us. I do believe that. I see them up and coming now. It's fucking amazing to see, but they need more people like us to actually guide people on an effective route to accomplishing their goals without having them go through the bullshit we have gone through and making them absolutely hate fitness and then spend the rest of their lives completely unhappy, not being able to conquer their goals because they're warped by an industry. Yeah, so going into the business side of things a little bit, and Alyssa just gave you a real life example of how she won a show and a supplement company said she won that show because of the supplements she took. Let's be very honest and straightforward here so you guys actually understand this if you don't know this already. Supplements are one to be supplemented into your program. They're not the foundation. They're not what build anything. They just like fill in deficiencies, or again, you need a little hype for your fucking workout. You got a pre-workout. Like, it's not the kind of protein she took that built her physique. It's not
pre-workout.
The pre-workout. It's not the creatine she had. It's not some special fat burner. It's none of that shit. It was consistency of the right shit over time with his training, nutrition, proper protocols in place for everything that bring that to light. However, we need to understand that these supplement companies build their brands off of images.
And athletes.
And athletes, images, yeah. So a person's image is what builds their brand. And so before athletes would come out and have their own brand, it's typically some old random fucking dude who's probably a washed up bodybuilder, starts a fucking supplement company, white labels a bunch of shit, goes and finds his friends who make no money but are great athletes and have great physiques, attach their name to a product, they blow the product up. When that athlete is done being on top, they move on to the next one, attach them to the product, and it's just this kind of like perpetual cycle. And that's how they build their brand, and that's how shit happens. And this is also why back in the day, supplement companies used to actually pay very big contracts. It used to be like, close to $100,000 for a year-long contract to work with some of these supplement companies. But this is also why supplement companies required their athletes to not talk about enhancements. They couldn't say anything about steroids or anything else they were taking. They had to say everything I was doing was because of these supplements, because they didn't want anyone else to realize that maybe it's not the whey protein they're taking. It's actually the diet, the nutrition, and then all the other enhancements they're taking to actually help them achieve that. And so that's really how pretty much every single supplement company was built, and most of them still thrive off of that same business model,
Yeah, I mean, that's just a lot of companies in the fitness industry altogether. It's not really backing the product by its integrity. Unless it's First Form. They're great.
Well, that's why going into the next part of helping you guys decipher who to buy products from. One, you want to go with the most reputable companies. You, two, want to go with companies that aren't relying on one individual as the face of their business. That's crucial. First Form example, there's not one First Form athlete that makes their business. It's their 100+ athletes of all different sizes. You have us, who were like smaller level. Then you have people who have fucking 9-10 million followers that, again, have a
But I couldn't
way
even
larger
name
audience.
them because they don't put people's faces next to their brand.
Exactly.
I just think of Andy.
Yep, exactly. So again, their brand isn't relying off of one athlete's image. And then the third piece of it is, even if they do have their brand like built off of an image, you want to make sure it's an athlete that's been with them for a minimum of 5 years. If an athlete has been with the company for at least 5 years, I can guarantee you that that company treats them right, probably pretty good product, and the company has their shit in order. If you see any company that is cycling through an athlete on an 8 to 12 month cycle, and it's a new athlete every single time, that shows you they're not treating their athlete the right way, which is fucked up because that's who's building their brand. And it also shows you that without those athletes' images, their brand would be nothing. So again, take First Form. If you ripped away every single athlete they have, it probably wouldn't really affect their business. They would still be just as strong. They would still be exactly who they are because they operate off of like morals and integrity.
I think I want to go back to the bodybuilding. In my experience and just what I've realized, they're not sitting there like thinking about like the longevity of athletes, like the way that other sports in industries would, in terms of like what's required through that. All they care about is like good looking people on stage. There isn't really like standards or procedures or protocols in place that helps people from like protects people from like a health perspective, because there's a lot of shows where people end up in the hospital that day or don't even make it on stage, and that's because there's no procedures or policies in place in order to protect the health and integrity of their athletes. All they care about is who's going to show up at the next show.
Yeah, and like let's break that down a little bit more. Let's use like the NFL, for example. NFL is the same way. If you don't have a promise to you, your contract will get cut. And this is why, again, the physical therapists, the medical doctors, all of that are very tight with the actual owners of the team and the coaches and things like that, because they want to know, hey, is Johnny's shoulder okay? Will Johnny be able to play into next season? What's going on with his shoulder? And if there's any slight doubt that Johnny's shoulder is not going to hold up, they will just cut his contract and they're going to go find someone new. So it's very normal in the competitive realm, pro level of sports. Here's the difference.
Bodybuilding's not a sport.
No, here's the difference. With NFL, there's still procedures in place. They get blood work. Again, you got physical therapists, doctors. You have everything on board to make sure that the health of this athlete is always to the highest standard. In bodybuilding, there is literally none of that. There's no health checks. There's no like blood work. There's no even medical kind of screening the day of the show or anything like that. There is zero, none of that. And this is where the issue lies. And this is why, again, it is a taboo sport. There's not a bunch of money flowing through it. However, in order to take things to the next level and do what's best for the athlete, they really should have these things in place like all of these other pro sports have. Like
because I feel like they hold themselves to that standard or echelon, like publicly and like mentally. Like they want to be that, but they don't do what it takes to rise up and do that.
Yeah, for sure. They make it sound like it's safe and great and everything like that. But again, there are no protocols in place.
Sorry,
and people have died at many shows. Again, people get hospitalized at many shows. There's a lot of shit that happens. And ultimately, like I do understand it's a business and there's not a ton of money flowing through it. However, I think if you're going to tack more costs onto the athlete, which athlete has to pay for everything, even when you go pro, they should tack those fees on in order to protect the health of these competitors and allow people to have more longevity within the sport and not seeing, you know, the repetitive deaths of people we see at a very young age and all this shit that continues to happen.
Like to them, it doesn't make a difference or not if an athlete comes back next year. They'll just have more athletes. You're super replaceable. It just doesn't matter. Like someone else is going to get the spot. Doesn't make a difference to them. Now, this also goes back to having a great coach and doing your due diligence, because there also has to be the knowledge and support of a coach understanding, hey, we have to get our baselines. This is how we run our cycles. This is the length of period of time you can actually compete. This is the time you need to have off. Like we have to take this year off. Last year took a toll on you if you want to come back better. And for most athletes, unless they've like achieved a certain look that they're able to maintain without having to do a lot all the time, which takes years, and it still takes time. There's still periods of time off and different cycles that you have to go through in your competitive journey. That's why bodybuilding is a long game. It's not a short game. It's literally like the game of patience, because an athlete can't run themselves to the ground year after year and expect to do better. So that's why it's important to have a coach that is able to support you like with the blood work and a proper timeline for you to achieve your goals, whether that's in season or off season. Because a lot of this does fall in the athlete, like your health and your longevity, because there aren't really actually standards and procedures in place.
It's like I was saying, going back with the whole business side of things, like it is your priority to protect yourself.
Well,
and that starts with your health. Like you should be the advocate for that. You should have a coach that is advocating for that stuff as well. Because yeah, ultimately it's your life that's on the line and it's not going to affect anyone else except you.
I mean, I get for legal purposes why like the company can't say, hey guys, these drugs are safe. These drugs are not safe. Like they can't recommend
It doesn't have to be like that. It could be a simple screening before.
Yeah.
Blood pressure. Like again, there's like simple things that could be done that ultimately don't really cost
just your
any
vitals
fucking money
alone.
Check people's fucking vitals, dude. Like I mean, blood pressure alone, just checking people's fucking blood pressure would be a great start to a lot of this and would prevent a lot of shit.
And at 28 to 35, when a lot of these more mature competitors are competing, no one's thinking to check their blood pressure.
Nowadays they are. And that's why I shifted, because enough mistakes have happened. And now you also have people like us who have the experience, they have the knowledge, and they have the fucking care and passion to make sure people are actually doing this shit responsibly. And that's why it goes back to what we were already saying is like, you don't have to step on stage to have an elite level physique. Like you really fucking don't. You can look awesome, look insane, and achieve an award-winning physique without having to go through the fucking process to get the award, unless that's what you feel called to do.
I think another thing that turned me off from the industry once wellness came out and I started competing was seeing how many young, super young women started trusting a lot of like these male coaches really to give them PEDs to start looking a certain way, and everything has been done irresponsibly. And it sucks because I see a lot of these young women, and I told a lot of my clients, from posing clients to our coaching clients to just women who would reach out to me after I went pro, like, be careful. Like, look, in 5 years, and we're literally seeing it now, a lot of these women are going to look like dudes because things have been done irresponsibly, a really high dosage and a long duration, and no one's going to take a break because they just think more is better and they're going to keep growing and going. And now we're seeing the consequences of that, and it's really, really sad because there's also a lot of mental health defects that come with it, because a lot of these things change the brain chemistry of these women. And that's why in bodybuilding, a lot of people have committed suicide and really suffer from depression and mental health disorders.
This goes back to what I was saying too with the cheating and things like that. That's why the men and the females are very hypersexual, because they are being pumped full of hormones that make you very hypersexual. So it's not necessarily a knock to them, it's a knock to what they're doing. But I think that's a really big piece to it all, is understanding that you're not just like compromising your health, because like, again, steroids can be used responsibly. Like these enhancements can be used responsibly. The problem is this: oftentimes you're messing with your brain chemistry, like she was mentioning. And the other side of that is you're messing with your reproductive health for males and for females. You're playing a gamble with whether you're going to be able to conceive or not. And so you see these ladies even men at 18, 20, 22 years old, making decisions or utilizing stuff that they're not even well educated on, and basically shutting the door on future opportunities, because at 18 years old, you're not fucking thinking about having kids. You're not thinking about having a family. You're fucking focused on this goal or whatever's right in front of you. And that's why we've probably talked more people out of stepping on stage than we have actually coached people on stage, because we want to make sure that the people who actually go through the journey and pursue that are people who have this burning desire to compete at the highest level as a bodybuilder. And there are those people, and I respect them. I was one of them. I have nothing but respect for. I have plenty of friends who are still live or die. This is what they want to do, and they have that burning passion, and nothing else will ever supersede that. And I do respect those people, but that right there is a very, 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 very small percentage of the competitive athletes, because not every competitive athlete has that. It's a fucking small percentage.
It's just crazy though, because what's rewarded is now the standard of what's required in order to push to those extreme levels to be the best. So I'll just keep speaking from the wellness division, because that's my experience. Is now, in order for a woman to be successful to do that, she has to compromise her femininity. Pretty much all of those things that Carter mentioned, from your reproductive health to just absolutely accepting the virilization side effects from a lot of these PEDs in order to achieve that award-winning elite level physique, to be the best, to win, to be the top, to go to the Olympia. So it's like, while some people may want that, I still think a lot of women don't actually truly get it, and you get so wrapped up and blinded and caught into that. And a lot of people will start realizing that after they realize that they're not fulfilled by any of it.
And it's too late. That's the hard part. So this is totally going down a rabbit hole, but we'll take you guys there. So virilization is basically the development of male characteristics. So when a female uses hormones that are basically made for men, they use it at the wrong dose or the wrong duration, they will develop male characteristics. And unfortunately, they are irreversible. So once you start to experience those things, compound that over an extended period of time, those side effects are just now your new norm. And so like she was saying, is a lot of females don't really understand what they're signing up for many reasons. It's not just all on them. Again, it's their responsibility, but there's a lot of other factors in play. Again, you can trust people who you think are giving you the right fucking guidance, and they're not. But yeah, unfortunately, they just eventually realize it when they're not fulfilled, and then it's too late. And then now you're in a situation where it's like, fuck, I kind of wish I didn't make that decision. And so now you're trying to go through a journey to regain your body, regain your mindset, and regain your femininity back, which is a fucking challenge.
And this leads to the exact reason why I stopped competing and decided to pull away when I did, because I knew to get to that level, I was going to have to sacrifice on all of those things. And it was really important for me to maintain my value system and have my own sense of like self-integrity to say like, hey, no, like I'm going to not do that because I don't align with that. That's not who I want to be. Who I am and who I'm creating myself is way more important than chasing what's getting rewarded. So that's why I stopped competing. I just valued what it meant to be a feminine, strong, healthy woman. And that also meant that I would probably, like, that would totally affect mine and Carter's relationship and affect our ability to have kids one day, maybe. Like, it's just, not, I finally got what I wanted in my life in terms of like the marriage and the business, the relationship and the family and the sense of like belonging. Like I felt way more fulfilled knowing that I was going to go down this path. It's like I was getting rewarded with two paths. One path was go be Miss Olympia, the goal that I was working for since I was 18, or go build your empire and build a business and have a happy, successful marriage and start a family and go live this beautiful life where you travel and feel free and happy and beautiful and life is amazing. So I went that route.
Yeah. So that was kind of a breakdown on, some of the shit we had to go through, kind of, again, the dark side of the industry. And again, it's no shame on any specific company, any specific people, anything like that. It's just the nature of that world. And we wanted to give you guys a little opening, or a little opening into that world, because unless you're in it and you've been around it to actually see it all, so many people bury their heads in the sand, you just don't really know what it consists of, or how it operates, or the negative things that can be involved in it. So again,
That's just why we pivoted from that world and went the more functional, holistic health route in terms of like fitness.
exactly, because our goal is getting people to their goal in the healthiest and most sustainable way. So even if that is having one of those elite level physiques, you do want to use enhancements and you want to do all these things, there's a safe way to do it. It can be used virtually risk-free. You can still enjoy life. You can still have a beautiful marriage, a great business, or great work life, whatever it is. And you don't have to make all these extreme sacrifices for a fucking trophy. So
Yeah.
we appreciate you guys always tuning in. As always, podcasts will be dropped Tuesday mornings. Tune in. You can watch us live on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We're going to keep these podcasts coming consistently. Drop in the comments any questions you guys have, how you feel about it. Give us some feedback. If you guys have questions on topics you want on the podcast as well, feel free to reach out to us directly. Instagram at the Carter Montgomery. Hers is at Alyssa Rose Wellness. Team page is at the Ascension Fitness. Tune in, check us out, hit us up. We appreciate you all. We'll see you on the next one.
Thanks for listening.